Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware. Welcome to all of you who have come to be present and to those of you online who are joining us. On behalf of the church, I introduce myself, James Moser, and I'm your worship associate this morning. Each Sunday, we offer a welcome of warmth and diversity, and for each, you will find it present today. Especially today, we observe Memorial Day across the country and remember, recall, and revisit those whom we've lost. Now, you are welcome here, whether you are a military veteran or a war protester. You are welcome here, whether you're engaged in a relationship or are single. You are welcome here, whether you're a native of this town or county or country, or if you've come from somewhere else. You're welcome here no matter whether you're gay or straight, younger or older, previously religious or not. Welcome to the First U family today, especially if you're here for the first time. For more information about the life and events of First Unitarian, I invite you to connect to our website and email newsletter. There will be several people participating vocally and in presence in this service today. Particularly want to welcome David Hearn, who is our musician for the day, and also Richard Speck, who will be our song leader. Now let us prepare our hearts and minds for worship.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Larry Piers, minister here at First Unitarian Church of Wilmington. Has anyone else crossed an ocean to be here today other than the Pinsons? It's great to have you back, and it's great to see you all today. So we come this day, called by war, by the suffering we inflict and endure, when minds across borders fail to reason and compromise.
We come this day called by loss, the deaths of those who serve in our name, those whose lives end before their natural course in service to a greater cause than their own.
We come this day called by hope, hope that we will, in some season, finally surrender our swords for plowshares.
And we come this day called by peace. May we hear its song, may we proclaim its promise. May our remembrance today renew our struggle. We can never stay or rest. Lighting our chalice today will be our member, Rick Rambo, whom I welcome to the chancel this morning. Rick is a veteran and a commissioner of the Delaware Commission of Veterans Affairs. Those of you who have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it with us as you hear these words. On this Memorial Day, we gather to remember those who could not grow old, those who were forced to grow old long before their time. We gather to mourn and grieve with one another all of our losses, the people, the stories, the loved ones, and the futures that could have been. We gather to rekindle our source of hope for the future by recognizing in one another our shared humanity as we join in a concerted commitment for a better tomorrow. We gather because we need community to do all of this holy work. And now, Richard will lead us in our opening hymn.
You'll stay seated for this because this is a hymn that this congregation is not familiar with. So to help you with this, I'm going to have David play the first line. I'll then sing the first line, and then we'll all sing the first line, and we'll repeat that for the rest of the first verse. That will give you an idea of how the song goes. And after that, then we'll sing the other two verses that are going to appear on the screen. So David, would you please? All my memories of love hang upon high stars. All my memories of love hang upon high stars. Willows in September touch the water clear, set among the rushes fall of the flowing year, rising up from sunlit paths on the shadowed sky, running toward me silently, love to fortify. Many are the graceful hearts hung upon this tree, and it seems there's room for mine on these branches free. And the sky above the tree, whether wet or bright, is my ease and comforting, my good news and light.
Please join me in our unison affirmation. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, fights injustice, and transforms the world through loving action. The reading this morning is entitled Collective Action for Collective Healing by Thomas Hübl. At first, the topic of collective trauma appears heavy, and this is because we're dealing with the major ethical catastrophes on this planet. But underneath trauma, there is always healing, which means an ethical restoration and ethical upgrade. Post-traumatic growth is an ethical realignment. There have been unaccountable genocides and wars, all kinds of transgressions. When we come to the place of restoration, there's a kind of illumination, a self-healing mechanism that heals the tissues of life. And I believe that collective healing will support individual healing and help us learn even more about individual health. We will see these two systems as unified as they are. The collective and individual are not separate. They work as an interdependent system.
So on the Sunday closest to Veterans Day in 2022, I invited the Reverend Dr. Chris Antel to speak to our congregation about his work and moral injury with veterans at the Philadelphia Veterans Medical Center. Reverend Chris is a Unitarian Universalist minister, a chaplain at the VA Medical Center, a former doctoral student of mine. And what was unique about the 10-week moral injury program for veterans at the Philadelphia Medical Center, Veterans Medical Center, is that moral injury is considered a public health issue. Through the program, veterans deal with the emotional, the relational, the spiritual, the social and societal and moral issues related to being involved in direct violence and their experience of moral pain. The program also, and I will read here, empowers veterans to use testimony to build moral community, to promote deeper moral discernment, and encourages U.S. citizens, all of us, to assume greater moral responsibility for addressing the more subtle dynamics of structural and cultural violence that lie well beyond the individual agency of any individual veterans. It also provides veterans with an opportunity to reflect on and analyze their own experience within a larger conceptual framework of the violence in the structures and cultures of U.S. militarism, militarization, and war. End of quote. A handful of members of First Unitarian Church of Wilmington were motivated to attend the community healing ceremony at the Veterans Medical Center at least a few times since Reverend Antel spoke to us in 2022. In that ceremony, we heard personal testimonies of veterans that conveyed their awareness and their emotional work that they had done to reflect upon and to work through some of their experiences. The ceremony, which occurs at the end of the 10-week program, is open to the families of veterans, community leaders, clergy, and others from the wider community. And in the service, there is an expression of gratitude for the veterans, and there is also an acknowledgement of our collective responsibility for the healing process. It's a little different dynamic than our typical thank you for your service approach, because it also looks at our role in the ongoing healing and carrying of the moral impact of war on all of us. In the service, participants from the wider community are invited to state these words: "Our nation sent you into harm's way. We trained, equipped, and authorized you to kill. We put you into situations where atrocities were possible. We asked you to be willing to die. We ask you to do the unthinkable, commit the unspeakable, and bear the unbearable. We lament. We grieve. We recognize our shared responsibility for lives lost, resources wasted and misused, pain suffered and inflicted, for the earth scorched and contaminated, for families broken, communities devastated, and trust betrayed. We share responsibility with you for all that you have seen, for all that you have done, for all that you have failed to do, and for all that has been done to you, for all that you have been through. We affirm our duty to care, to seek understanding and change. We lift up the burden from your shoulders and carry it with you. You are not alone. We are companions on this journey. This was a very powerful statement for us to make in the context of this ceremony, because for many of us, it was our first realization and acknowledgement that we share in the responsibility of what has occurred to our veterans and all of those who have served in war. So as not to make these words that we recited at the community healing ceremony an empty promise, a small group of First Unitarian members have been meeting to consider all the ways that we can remember veterans and our collective responsibility for what they have endured, and for our own responsibility, collective responsibility for their healing and all of our healing. As time has unfolded, we've worked together to provide some worship services here. We've partnered with some community organizations such as Vets from the Healing with Art program at Del Art, who displayed their work in the parish hall. Maybe some of you saw that at that Veterans service this year, Veterans Day service this past year. In November 2023, we did hold a Veterans Day service here, in which we invited 4 veterans, 3 of whom are members of our congregation, to speak of their experiences. We also invited those present to bring a photo and or light a candle to honor the veteran in their own family. Remember that day? We almost ran out of candles, since we had not anticipated how many in our congregation have a family member, a friend, or an acquaintance, living or past, who was a veteran. It was powerful to experience this honoring of veterans and our congregation's connections to them on that Sunday. We plan a similar service in November of this November 2024. Today is Memorial Day, and our service is focused around the themes of Memorial Day. Although it's often confused with Veterans Day, Memorial Day is explicitly set apart as a day to honor those who died in wartime as a result of their experience in war. The observance of Memorial Day happened in various ways. Often it was called Decoration Day in previous times. But before it was actually observed as a national commemoration, there were a lot of more regional or local celebrations. It was only recently in the 1990s that perhaps the very first Memorial Day occurred in Charleston, South Carolina. Maybe some of you have heard this story. When Charleston fell, this is right after the Civil War, obviously, and the Confederate troops evacuated the badly damaged city, those freed from enslavement remained. One of the first things those emancipated men and women did was to give the fallen Union prisoners a proper burial. They exhumed the mass grave and reinterred the bodies in a new cemetery with a tall, whitewashed fence inscribed with these words, "Martyrs of the Race Course." It was held in a race course, the massacre. And then on May 1st, 1865, something even more extraordinary happened. A crowd of 10,000 people, mostly free enslaved people, with some white missionaries, staged a parade around that racetrack. 3,000 black schoolchildren carried bouquets of flowers and sang John Brown's Body. Members of the famed 54th Massachusetts and other black Union regiments were in attendance and performed double-time marches. How many of you knew that story of what's considered now the first Memorial Day celebration? It's very recent that it's been uncovered. So today on Memorial Day, we're doing the difficult task of owning that the cost of war often includes the death of brothers and sons and husbands and partners, colleagues, acquaintances, neighbors. Today we own that war upends life, shatters dreams, breaks hearts, and shatters souls. And all those who fought, died, or despaired in war need our collective recognition. Much as we would rather not have to acknowledge the human cost and the soul cost of war, we remember today those who have perished. Some will place flags on graves to acknowledge those fallen soldiers so that there's a visible symbol that they have not been forgotten. There will be parades and solemn remembrances. The cost of war is most directly felt by those who have perished, of course, but the pains of war are carried in the burdens of those who have endured this loss. The burden is often carried in the memories some of us hold. The burden is often held by the stories that we could tell of those soldiers and others who have died as a result of war. Some of those stories go untold. Some of those stories have never been told. Told or untold, many of us carry the stories about loved ones who are part of the tragedy of fighting in war. Sometimes those who die never wanted to fight in the first place. Sometimes those who have died may not even believe in the cause of the war. Sometimes those who have died may not have lived that many years. They are so young, too young, to know their own youthful dreams or to realize those dreams. As James and I read this morning today, or in our call for worship, we come this day called by war, by the suffering we inflict and endure when minds across borders fail to reason and compromise. We come this day called by loss, the deaths of those who serve in our name, those whose lives end before their natural course in service to a cause greater than their own. More and more, we're coming to understand the intergenerational trauma and the realization that the effects of traumatic stress can be transmitted to subsequent generations, even when individuals from these generations are not exposed to any traumatic stressor. We must tell the story. The stories or the trauma remains ours to hold in our own hearts, our own souls, and our own bodies. The healing begins by telling the stories. Otherwise, the stories have their hold on us. If healing is to occur, we must create a sacred container that helps us to acknowledge the pain, the grief, and that allows us to hold one another. We have asked a long-term member of our congregation to tell the story of her own loss so that our collective heart could hold this story alongside her heart with care, with compassion, and with a tenderness. Let us hear Ruth's story.
Good morning to you. We are recognizing Memorial Day today, as Reverend Larry said, and I wanted to thank him that he asked me to share my brother's story with you. I grew up with two older brothers, Hans and Wolfram Clavier. We lived in Swinemünde. The name of the city came about because Swine is the river which runs through the city, and Münde is the closure so that the river ends up, in this case, in the Baltic Sea in the eastern part of Germany. It was an idyllic place to grow up in, with lots of water, and we could row, paddle, sail, swim, do all kinds of wonderful things. And in wintertime, when it was very cold, we could even ski in the frozen waves, but definitely in the woods surrounding the beach. And the beach was wonderful, very wide, so it was a paradise to grow up in. After my father died, we stayed in Swinemünde until we had to flee from the Russians at the end of World War II. Both brothers had been called to active Navy duty, and they couldn't stay together. The fighting continued on various levels, and when it stopped, when Germany lost the war, it was in bad shape. Mother and I were not the only ones waiting for our guys to come back home. Months after months continued. Wolfram, my younger brother, finally came back. Hans, the older one, we didn't hear from, and that was the worst time, the not knowing, the anxiousness of could he show up or couldn't he? It was also tough for my mother, tougher than eventually preparing to leave the eastern part of Germany and seek refuge in the western part in Hamburg. Every day soldiers returned, gratefully walking the streets and having fun, but no news from Hans. And finally, I wrote a letter to the Red Cross, hoping that through that action we would find an answer. Some days went by, and finally I got a call from my brother's, Hans' best friend, who had been fighting with him, who was back home now, didn't have our address and therefore also contacted the Red Cross and got our address. So this good friend called me and told me about the last hopeless hours he spent with Hans. Because for Hans, all the values he had for his country were gone, and it was not worth living anymore. So after the self-inflicted death, this friend of him carried him to the edge of the road, buried him there, while the Russians respectfully left them alone. I have the approximate address, which is now Polish, but never went. Just hope that he rests in peace, and deep down, he is still with me. Thank you for listening.
You managed? Okay. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you. It takes a moment to hold the story that you have been holding for much of your life. So give us a moment to catch up so that we can hold it alongside of you, Ruth. Ruth, you've helped us to recognize that some of us, even in ways we might not fully realize, have been impacted by war and the loss that war brings. Ruth, we remember this loss of your brother as one of the tragedies of war. And in the sacred container of this religious community, we hold this story with tenderness, with compassion, and with care. During our ritual of remembrance this morning, we will allow time for you to acknowledge on this Memorial Day those you know who have died in military service. You will be invited forward to say their name, to light a candle, to share a picture if you brought one. And Lois will say more about that when we get to that part of the service. We will hold each of those persons and you with a love that also holds us. We also must acknowledge that we're living in a time of collective trauma. And one of the definitions of trauma, including collective trauma, is that we are not able to process what is happening while it is occurring. So we hold onto it. We feel its effects in our bodies, our spirits, our souls, our relationships. The last few days, I've been at a conference on religion and psychology, and I had a dinner conversation with a woman in her 80s who was holding a particular kind of pain that I didn't know about until our conversation proceeded. We talked about all the usual things. She told me about her life work, her family, her activism. But there on the outdoor picnic bench with a single candle burning on the table before night had descended, while eating barbecued tofu, just to give you a flavor, there was an opening in our conversation. And she entered that opening. As I listened, she shared her anguish and her distress about all of the wars that are currently happening in our world. Mind you, she has lived a lot in her life over these 80-plus years. She's seen a lot. Yet current events are landing on her soul in a particular way. And I couldn't help but be moved inwardly to tears as she shared this sentence. I never imagined that I would be experiencing this, that our world would be like this at my age. Many of us, I know, including me, can resonate with that statement. Right? In a time when so much of our world is in war, it feels that on this particular Memorial Day, we should not just look back to the losses that have occurred, but also recognize all of those impacted by war, past and present. Our healing, if it is to occur, must happen now. We must participate in that healing. As Thomas Hubel says, underneath trauma, there's always healing. There's always strength that wants to break forth as well. So rather than become numb to the atrocities of the war in the here and now, let's be sensitized. Rather than become deaf to the cries of those who suffer unnecessarily, such as innocent children and civilians, let's take in their suffering. Rather than turn away from those whose lives are overturned and forever impacted by war, let's boldly look at what is happening. We've made a space in the second part of our ritual then today to recognize all of those, not just those who fought, but all of those impacted by war in the past or the present. Thomas Hubel reminds us that healing happens when you decide not to look away, to attune, to be present with what is, to notice and sense and feel. By practicing presence and attunement, you begin to discover a deeper sense of relationship to yourself, to others, to life, to the cosmos. This is sacred ground, he writes, where fragments are reincorporated, separation is dissolved, and greater wholeness is realized. So may it be. And so our musical meditation, written by Unitarian Universalist musician Peter Mayer and Kevin McKinney. The song uses images of kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken bowls with lacquer mixed with golden powder. You've probably seen those or pictures of them. But kintsugi is also a philosophy which recognizes that breakage and repair are part of the history of an object, rather than something to disguise. Likewise, we all in our own way carry the wounds, the story, the concerns of war. May we find ways towards our collective healing that includes embracing our memories, sharing our stories, holding the memories and stories of others. May we find ways for our wounds to turn into wisdom and remind us again and again of our deeper yearning for peace. Richard.
I'm like one of those Japanese bowls that were made long ago. I have some cracks in me. They have been filled with gold. That's what they used back then, when they had a bowl to mend. It did not hide the cracks, it made them shine instead. So now every old scar shows from every time I broke, and anyone's eyes can see I'm not what I used to be. But in a collector's mind, all of these jagged lines make me more beautiful and worth a more higher price. I'm like one of those Japanese bowls. I was made long ago. I have some cracks you can see how they shine of gold.
our service, we would like to remember and honor those who served in the military and gave the ultimate sacrifice of their lives. So I invite anyone here to come forward to bring a picture if you have one. If not, to come forward and say the name and short detail of one that you would like to remember and honor.
I brought in Charles August Matthias. He died of wounds in World War I. He was in the 102nd Infantry, 26th Division of Connecticut. He died in 1918 at age 23, the first man killed from Westport, Connecticut in World War I.
Anyone else?
I would like to honor Pete Conrad, a brother of a high school classmate of mine. He was killed very early in the Vietnam War, one of the first people. He was a young man that didn't know what to do with himself after high school, so he joined the army just to find himself. And instead he found himself dead.
This past week, as part of the Conrad High School Alumni Association, I got together with several alumni to honor 8 people who died during the Vietnam War from Conrad. And the one I want to recognize was a close classmate from mine. I was class of 67, he was class of 68. His name was Michael D. Pasquantonio. And right after high school, we joined the Marines. He was over in Vietnam, and on a patrol, he stepped on a landmine and lost his life. And those of us who served in Vietnam, such as myself, we were there to protect the democracy of a country who did not want to become communist. So Michael gave his life for that cause, and I honor him today.
I'd like to share a story about my father, Thomas Joseph Lynch Jr. He didn't die in World War II, but he was an electrical engineer on a destroyer that was circling around Iwo Jima. It breaks my heart that I never asked him about his experiences. I wish I knew more about that, but that was at a time when people didn't talk about things.
Like to say a sorry about that. My uncle, Frank, who died during World War II, he was a member of the United States Air Force, and he died fairly early in the war.
Earl Terry, my cousin, died World War II. I never met.
I was very young at the time, and I went to my boyfriend's house after school, and I saw a picture on the wall that looked exactly like him. And I said, "Who is that?" And he said, "That's my brother, and he died in Vietnam." And when Rick and I went to the wall maybe 15 years ago, we did find his name there, and his name is Robert Kuntz. Thank you.
So we hold these people that we are honoring in our hearts and our minds, and the people that are mourning them. I'd like to invite anyone who feels they have someone in their mind and their heart that has been impacted by war, either in the present or the past, to come forward and take a stone and put it in the water as a healing. Impacted anywhere in the world with war that is in our hearts and our minds, present or past. Please come free.
There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all we are. There is a love holding all we rest in this love. We rest in this love. We rest in this love.
So I invite you to come forward if you'd like to place a stone. Anyone that's been impacted by war, either past or present. If you'd like to say the name of someone that you're thinking of also, please feel free.
George Snodgrass.
The people of Gaza, the people of Israel, the people of Ukraine.
Please join with me. Water, heal my body. Water, heal my soul. When I go down, down by the water, I feel home. Water, heal my body. Water, heal my soul. When I go down, down to the water, I feel home. One more time. Water, heal my body. Water, heal my soul. When I go down, down to the water, I feel home.
We're shifting gears now to a stewardship moment. I want to tell you that about a little over 30 years ago, when I was a minister between pulpit appointments, I visited the Center for Ministry at Newton, Massachusetts for a career assessment opportunity. One of the tools I was given served as a career interest inventory. I'd already been in the ministry for 20 years at that point, but it was good to refresh. And part of that device was a category on denominational identification, not affiliation. My affiliation at the time was Presbyterian, but what I discovered from that inventory is that my theological identification was not. I identified as Universalist. This was not the first time such a test had revealed that result. You'd think I would get it. But my deeper interest and identification, deeper than Presbyterian or even deeper than the Baptist of my youth and childhood, was something other than my conscious notion. The responses I had indicated on that inventory revealed my true identification as Unitarian Universalist. I was in my late 40s then. Following retirement from ministry and the expiration of 25 more years, I finally embraced my inner self and joined you, First U at Wilmington. And here I find both the philosophical theological progressiveness that I've always held, even though sometimes muted by church necessity, both that progressiveness and the community of spirit that I had always longed for. That's why I'm here now. The UU principles of free search for truth and meaning and purpose, the right of conscience within our congregation, and the goal of world community with peace and liberty and justice. Those are 3 of our 7 guiding principles of Unitarian Universalism that guide me. Finally, because I call First U home, I commit my, as we say it, time, talent, and treasure to keep my home healthy. Now, you can feel it coming, can't you? I invite you to consider your contributions of support to our church family, financially with your treasures. As for contributing time and talents, well, the nominating committee will find you before long, but don't wait. Volunteer. For both you in the sanctuary and those of you online at home, let us think of the ways that we can contribute time, treasure, and talent. The treasure T will be posted on the screen for those of you here to read and those of you at home to consume. And now please join me in dedicating our offering. To the work of this congregation, which, weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Those of you at home who have lit a chalice, we invite you to join us now as we near the end of our service to extinguish the flame. And I recite again the last entry of the call to worship that Reverend Larry and I offered to begin this service. As we come this day, called by peace, may we hear its song, may we proclaim its promise. May our remembrance today renew our struggle, for we can never stay or rest.
Before I offer the benediction, Rick Rambo has an announcement that he will make.
On Memorial Day, a lot of veterans have sayings that they remember, and one of them is, all gave some gave all. And there's also another one too, is always remember, never forget. So what I have here, these were contributed by Delaware Veterans Post 1. These are gravesite flags. And if you have a family member who is either killed in action while serving in the military, or If you have a family member who served in the military, lived a natural life, but is no longer with us, we have these flags where you can go to their grave, and this is your opportunity to say, once again, thank you for your service. I'll be in the back. I have plenty of flags, so please remember this is an opportunity to show those who have served and no longer here, to honor them.
Thank you, Rick. So these words of benediction are written by Jan Richardson, entitled, "Blessed are you who bear the light." Blessed are you who bear the light in unbearable times, who testify to its endurance amid the unendurable, who bear witness to its persistence when everything seems in shadow and grief. Blessed are you in whom the light lives, in whom the brightness blazes. Your heart a chapel, an altar, where in the deepest night can be seen the fire that shines forth in you in uncountable faith, in stubborn hope, in love that illumines every broken thing it finds. Blessed are you who bear the light. Our closing hymn, Sending You Light. Richard will sing this as a solo, and you can join in with him as you feel ready.
Let me teach you the first part, which is your part of the refrain. So I'll have David play through it first, and then I'll sing it, and then you'll sing it, and then we'll get going. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. I walk the path with you. Go slow, dear one, don't hurry. I'll go just like you need to go. There is no need to worry. I am sending to heal you, to hold you, sending you light to hold you in love. I am sending you light to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. One more time. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love.